Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Thursday, February 12th, 2026. Today, we are looking at a document that, well, when I first opened it, I honestly thought I had the wrong file.
I had the same reaction.
Right, I was expecting sociology or some educational theory, and instead I'm just staring at these diagrams of cells and membranes. It looked exactly like my 10th grade biology textbook.
It really does. The visuals are so striking right off the bat, but then you look at the title and you realize you are definitely not in science class anymore.
Not at all. The title is Phagocytosis versus Black African De-Africanization. It's a mouthful. And this is a position paper by Jim Dogon McWilson from the African World Exploratory University.
And our mission today really is to unpack this metaphor.
Yeah.
Because it's a heavy one.
It's kind of terrifying once you get what he's saying. He's using this hard science concept, phagocytosis, how cells eat, to critique the American public school system.
And it is not a gentle critique.
Hmm?
This paper argues that the achievement gap we always hear about
Yeah.
is not a failure of the system. It's the system working exactly as it was designed to.
Which is a huge claim. I mean, that turns the whole narrative on its head. So just to be clear for you listening, our job today is to report on the arguments in this specific text. We're exploring McWilson's framework.
Exactly. We're trying to understand his viewpoint on what he calls menticide.
That's a word that just stops you in your tracks, isn't it?
It really is.
But let's start where the paper starts, with the biology, because the whole argument rests on this. So for those of us who haven't been in a lab in 20 years, what exactly is phagocytosis?
So looking at the source, phagocytosis is a process cells use immune cells, usually to engulf and destroy foreign stuff. Think of it as the body's cleanup crew. It gets rid of bacteria, viruses, that kind of thing.
Okay.
The paper breaks it down into 4 phases, and these are crucial because the author maps a student's journey right onto them.
Okay, walk us through them. I want to picture this.
Phase 1 is entrapment. The cell identifies a particle, say a bacteria, and grabs it. It sees it as something that doesn't belong.
It recognizes it as other.
Exactly. Then phase 2, formation of a food vacuole. The cell basically wraps its own membrane around the particle, traps it inside a little bubble.
So it's inside the cell now, but it's still itself. It's still intact.
For a minute, yes. But then comes phase 3, fusion with lysosomes. Lysosomes are they're like little packets inside the cell full of digestive enzymes.
Oh, okay.
They merge with that bubble and just dump those enzymes all over the particle. And that leads to phase 4, digestion.
The particle is broken down, dissolved.
And its raw materials are absorbed by the cell to fuel the cell itself.
Okay, so in our bodies, this is great. This keeps us from getting sick. It's a defense mechanism.
It protects the organism, yes. But here's the pivot in the paper, and it's a sharp one. McWilson says the organism isn't a human body. It's the institutional school system.
And the foreign particle being eaten.
That's the Black African student.
Wow. That is a visceral image. To picture a kid walking into school and seeing that as a particle entering a digestive system.
And he maps those 4 stages right onto the student's experience. It starts with recognition. The system identifies the Black child as other.
Maybe as at risk before they've even done anything.
Right. The paper argues the very first interaction is identifying difference as a deficit. Then comes engulfment.
Which sounds like a horror movie.
Well, in the paper, it's just enrollment. You walk through the doors, you're now inside the institution.
But stage 3, digestion. That's where the metaphor gets really dark. What does that look like in a classroom?
The enzymes, according to the text, are things like cultural erasure, miseducation, disproportionate discipline. The school environment actively attacks the student's original identity.
It strips away their history, their self-concept.
It dissolves the things that make that student distinct, just like an enzyme dissolves a bacteria's cell wall.
And the final goal is assimilation. Break it down to absorb it.
The paper calls it the reconstitution of the student. You're rebuilt to fit the institutional mold. The goal is to produce someone who mimics the dominant culture.
So, if the system works, success means you've let yourself be digested.
That's the argument, that for a Black student, academic success often requires a kind of self-destruction. You become fuel for the system.
This brings us right to that word menticide. It's not just bad teaching, is it?
No, it's much more active. The source defines it as the systematic destruction of a people's mental framework and memory. It implies intent.
It's not that the school forgot to teach African history.
It's that the system is actively removing the student's ability to see themselves as part of that history.
And he calls the mechanism for this de-Africanization. He gets really specific here, listing the civilizations that get erased.
Very specific. He lists Kemet, which is the indigenous name for ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Nubia, Kush, Mali, Songhai. I mean, these were massive world-altering empires.
With universities, astronomy, complex math.
And the paper says the curriculum performs a kind of lobotomy on history. It just cuts all of that off.
So what replaces it? You can't just have a void.
You replace it with what the author calls a narrative of deficit. If you start the story of black people in 1619 with slavery, you're teaching kids that their history is one of subjugation.
You erase the architect and leave only the victim.
Or the exception. That point was so interesting. Even when black achievement is taught, it's framed as an anomaly.
Like George Washington Carver just popped out of nowhere.
Right. It creates this psychological framework where greatness is seen as rare for people like them. Instead of being their foundational heritage, it changes their mental default setting.
And that's the digestion in real time. The system eats the memory of the astronomer and leaves only the memory of the enslaved person.
Exactly.
Okay, let me just channel some skepticism here. Because, people are thinking about the data, test scores, graduation rates. The gap is real. He's not saying it's fake, is he?
No, he acknowledges it. There's a whole section on current conditions. He lists the disparities in reading, math, all of it. He isn't denying the data. He's challenging the name we give it.
The achievement gap.
Right, the standard term.
Yeah.
But McWilson says achievement gap puts the blame on the student, like they aren't trying hard enough. He says we should call it the design gap.
A design gap. Okay, what does that mean?
It's an engineering idea.
Yeah.
If your factory machine for 50 years keeps producing a broken product from one specific set of materials, do you blame the materials?
No, you blame the machine. You assume it's calibrated wrong.
Or, as this paper argues, you assume it's calibrated perfectly to produce exactly what it's producing.
So the low reading scores aren't a bug, they're a feature.
That's the chilling assertion. And he zooms out, historically. Mass education systems were mostly built during the colonial era. They were designed to create a labor class, to stratify people.
So if the system is still creating stratification today...
It's just doing what it was built to do. The paper says we should stop asking why are black students failing and start asking what is this system producing and why.
There's another layer to this design argument, too. The paper talks about the traditional Black African family and this concept called Mott.
Yes, Matt. It's an ancient concept from Kemet about truth, balance, justice. But the point here is that pre-colonial African ways of knowing were communal. I am because we are.
And the American school system is, well, the opposite of that.
Completely. It's hyper-individualistic, competitive, it ranks you. The paper argues this creates a spiritual disruption. It drives a wedge between the child and their family's values.
That's the digestion again. The school dissolves the bond to the ancestral epistemology.
It teaches the child that to succeed in school, you have to reject home, which is the ultimate form of assimilation. It's brutal.
So if the whole machine needs to be redesigned, does he offer a blueprint? Where do you even start?
He does. And this is where the paper shifts from sociology to constitutional law, which I did not see coming.
Me neither. He frames the solution as a government obligation.
The logic is pretty straightforward. The state mandates curriculum, funding, and attendance. Therefore, the state is liable for the results.
So let's look at his policy recommendations. What's on the fix-it list?
First is curriculum reconstruction. And notice, it's not reform, it's reconstruction.
A total rebuild.
Mandatory inclusion of pre-enslavement African civilizations. Not as an elective, but as core tested history. You have to feed the student their own history to build that mental framework back up.
It also mentions equity-based accountability. This sounds like money and rules.
It is. Funding parity, but also a legal review of discipline disparities. He points out that black students are suspended at much higher rates.
Which, in the metaphor, is a system trying to expel the particle it can't digest.
Exactly. So the recommendation is to legally restrict that, force the system to adapt.
The third one, family-centered engagement, feels so important. It counters that disruption you mentioned.
Yes, it's about re-empowering the family to act as a buffer. If the family is strong and knows their rights, the school can't digest the child as easily. The family becomes a protective membrane.
And the last one is psychological restoration. You don't see that in policy papers. They talk textbooks, not trauma.
But it ties right back to menticide. If you accept that the system has caused psychological damage, you have to treat it. The paper calls for trauma-informed policy and dignity-based learning.
Dignity-based learning. I like that.
It just shifts the whole metric, doesn't it? It asks, does this classroom preserve a student's dignity? If not, it's not education. It's just processing.
So we've gone from a biology diagram to a legal brief. It's a dense document, but I keep coming back to that central image, the cell.
It's what sticks with you.
Yeah.
Because biologically, phagocytosis is necessary. You want your immune system to do that.
But a student isn't a virus.
That's the warning. When you apply that biological efficiency to human culture, you get a tragedy. Phagocytosis is absorption without preservation. The virus is gone forever. The paper is warning us that entire cultural ways of being can be dissolved.
He wraps it up by saying, education must move from being a mechanism of cultural dissolution to a vehicle of liberation.
From assimilation to authenticity, that's the goal. A system where you can bring your ancestors with you into the classroom.
It really forces you to look at a school differently. Is it a greenhouse where things grow? Or is it a stomach where things are consumed?
That is the question, isn't it? And I think what McWilson is challenging us to see is that neutrality is a myth. Every system is designing us for something. The only question is what?
It's a lot to sit with. So I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought experiment. The author described a system of phagocytosis, consumption, and erasure.
Right.
If we were to flip that design to build a school system to do the exact opposite, what would that biology look like?
That's a fascinating question.
What's a system that's structurally designed to amplify cultural differences, not digest them?
It definitely wouldn't be phagocytosis. It might be more like symbiosis.
Symbiosis.
Yeah, different organisms living together, distinct, but fueling each other. Mutually beneficial. Nobody gets eaten. Everyone gets stronger.
From phagocytosis to symbiosis. I like that. Maybe that's the design challenge for the next century of education.
It's a design worth working on.
Thank you for taking this journey with us. This was a deep one.
Always a pleasure.
We will see you next time. Keep reading and keep questioning.